We will now call the meeting to order. The time is 5 o'clock. Committee Chair Lori Bosnell is appearing virtually tonight, but she's asked if another member of the committee could act as the chair for this evening's meeting. Staff have a recommendation that reads that Craig Warden be named as the acting chair for the meeting of Thursday, May 4th, 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda as presented? Right, to adopt Craig as the acting chair.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now proceed with the item number 2. Approval of the agenda, the Committee of Adjustment meeting of May. Oh, you already did that, didn't you?
I read that wrong. Don't worry, I corrected myself. Go ahead and do the approval of the agenda.
Okay. Are there any declarations of interest, conflict of interest or whatever?
Sorry, Craig, you'll have to move for the approval of the agenda.
I thought you did.
No, I just, so we appointed you as chair and then
Okay.
approve the agenda.
Still go ahead with okay, we'll now proceed with item number 2, approval of the agenda. But the agenda of the Committee of Adjustment meeting of Thursday, May 4th, 2023 be approved as presented. Do I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda as presented?
Yeah, do that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Now, are there any declarations of interest? Conflict of interest?
None, sir.
Being none, we'll move on. Okay. Item number 4 is a motion to approve the minutes of previous meeting held on December 14th, 2022. I have a recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment minutes dated accepted as presented. Do I have a mover and seconder for this motion? Okay. Is there any discussion on the last meeting? Did anybody like to? All right. I keep forgetting to look up. Call the question. All in favor of this motion? Moved. Okay, 5.1. Staff report 01/2023 consent application SEV 2023-2-194 James Street East. Item 5.1 is a recommendation that Committee of Adjustment approve the proposed consent application SEV 2023-02 subject to the following conditions. Balance of any outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest and any local improvement charges, if applicable, should be paid to the town. An acceptable reference plan or legal description of the severed lands and the deed or instrument conveying the severed land, demonstrating the new property lines for both properties shall be registered and submitted to the town. Okay. Question, Mr. Merriman?
Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this subject property is over at 194 James Street East. This neighborhood is fairly well established. It probably got created back in the late 1800s. And basically, the person who owns 194 James Street approached a little over a year ago, neighbor. He was looking to sever a lot, basically off the back of his, because 194 was a fairly large lot. During the investigation, it was discovered that a smidgen of the neighbor's garage, and I do mean a smidgen, basically touched the property line, and a fair amount of the driveway was over the property line. The two neighbors spent some time talking about it, and they came to the conclusion that instead of severing off a lot to create a lot of severance, that it would be better just simply correct the problem. So basically, they're taking a fairly large, like not just enough to get the driveway, but even more than the driveway, all on the neighbor's property where it belongs. So basically, this severance came in to take a small piece off of 194, and they're going to be merging it onto 5 557, is it? Yeah, 557 East Street, which is the neighbor that's behind him. This section of land that's been proposed has been brought in through a sketch through the surveyor. It's certainly not a survey yet, but it's what's proposed. And it was submitted on March 7th, 2023. The list for the 60-meter buffer was created and it was mailed to all the neighbors in the area and the land was properly posted. At this point, we have not received any concerns from any neighbors or from any other person that was notified regarding this. Basically, it's just a good thing. It's good to get everyone's property where it belongs and the stuff that they have on it where it belongs is actually correct. Don't get me wrong, if nothing had been done, it had happened so long ago that it really wouldn't have been made moved, but at the same point, it's just better all the way around to have everyone's driveways where it belongs and everything else, and it gives them a little bit more room. It'll actually let them create the two lots with the proper setbacks, the proper frontage, just everything. So staff is recommending that it be approved with those two conditions.
Okay, thank you. Anybody on the committee want to make any comments? Sure.
I just have a question, Mr. Chair. On page, I think it's 14 on the sketch, I take it there's a fence that will be moved to reflect the new property lines. Is that the plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Fence. Sorry?
Yeah,
To
through you.
remove the fence to the new property line.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Is that what
Chair.
you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, the neighbors had agreed that it would be moved when the severance is complete.
Anybody else have any questions? Comments? Pretty straightforward. See Lori up there anymore.
Oh, did we lose Lori?
I think should I just step away for a moment?
Tony, can I comment?
Certainly.
The copy I have of maybe what you have of what's supposed to have been done. We agreed that there was a full lot at one time and we agreed he'd sell me half a lot. Half of whatever the full one was. And that's the only thing I can say, that's what we agreed on. So when I went to the paper that was given to me, I went down to the surveyors and they said, this means nothing to me. It's just a piece of paper according to the surveyor. So it's very hard for me without pins knowing what I'm buying.
Right.
It's pretty tough to figure out where you are, especially when you go from 0 at the back to 13 in the front. That's, I'm on, you know. So how do I figure what I'm actually even buying? That's the only problem I sort of have.
I can't believe you got to this.
Yeah, but I will say this is a separate issue still.
Yes.
He's still severing this off. If you don't choose to buy it in the future, the severance just doesn't go through. So,
No, I just, like, it's very hard to determine when you go from 0 to 13 on somebody else's property.
yeah.
Where am I going?
Oh, my drawing.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
I'm going by the drawing, but when I went to the surveyor.
Because it's not registered.
Wait, you buy what we
It's not
agreed
registered.
on, and then you own it. If you
Yes.
want pins, have the guy put pins in for you.
It's gotta be
The
registered.
only reason he said it wasn't viable for you is because you didn't own the land yet. So he couldn't come to survey somebody else's land.
Right. And it has to be.
Registered.
It has to be registered before that can be done.
Right. Well, it's not legal until it's registered. Up until then, it's just a potential.
You're still buying the same amount of
Yes,
square meters,
yes,
no matter what.
yeah.
So we just want to make sure for the committee that there is no objections to this severance. For both proponents, correct?
Sorry?
There is no objection to the severance by either group?
There's no objection from me.
Okay.
I don't think there's any objections from
No,
him.
there's not.
He just doesn't know where the pins are.
Very good. So I just wanted to clarify that for the.
Eventually, we'll find out where the pins are, and that's what he'll own.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Right. We need a mover and a seconder.
yeah. Because that's the only part I didn't read yet. Okay, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this motion? All those in favor?
Just for the audience members, so it was carried,
Sorry,
it was approved.
it's approved.
It's approved, and there's no need to sit through the rest of the meeting if you don't want to. Because it does tend to be a little bit dry and boring, so. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Have a great evening.
Okay.
It's going down shortly.
They just wait for a second.
There's a smile for the day.
I mean, it's good that they worked it out, but I mean, doesn't sound like it. Okay, 5.2, staff report 02/2023, minor variance application 292 Center Street. Item 5.2 is a recommendation of the Committee of Adjustment to approve the minor variance MV 2023-01 for 292 Center Street with the following condition. The balance of any outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest, shall be paid to the town. That's it.
That's it. Short and sweet in this.
I'm used to 4 of them.
Well, there's often for it, let's put it that way, but not in this case.
Okay,
So I'll,
there's some speech.
yep, I'll take that one.
Through Mr. Armstrong.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and through you, Mr. Chair. So what we have before you this evening is 292 Center Street is the post office. Over the last several years, it's transitioned from being kind of a government building to now being the post office. And what they're looking to do is put in 7 apartment units in the building. And that's in the basement, on the first floor, second floor, I believe. Is that correct, Sean? Yeah. So with that, when we take a look, there's no change to the envelope of the building. So we don't have to worry about setbacks. Nothing like that is changing. What we do have to look at is kind of the parking side. So in our zoning bylaw, with the mix of the retail office as well as the residential units, it calls for a total of 26 spaces, and they're able to provide 18 on site. Now, when we're taking a look at this particular building and how it functions, being a post office, a lot of people go in and out very quickly. All of them park on the street. So it's not a typical office or retail environment where you have to provide parking on site for them, because they're all accounted for on the street and the on-street parking. So it really reduces the number that we feel is required to be on site. The total number for the residential side is only 7 parking spots. That leaves 11 for the post office. And the post office obviously only works during normal business hours, Monday to Friday, where your residential is more going to be in the evening and on the weekends. So we see that they're able to accommodate all of the parking needs for the site on the current building site with 18. And we already know that none of the customers use the on-site parking because they have the on-street parking available to them. So when we go through the various tests, is it minor in nature? And as I noted, it is used as a post office, quick in and outs. They're all parked on the street, only being used during the business day from Monday to Friday. And then obviously the residential units will be more going to be parking overnight and on the weekends. The appropriateness, and really when we're looking at that downtown area, and this is part of the core commercial, we're trying to get a good mix of both retail, commercial, office space, as well as residential, because having the residential in that area makes it a more vibrant and kind of a more alive area. And really that's what's this development is all about, is adding that additional residential. You also notice from this particular development that they've added quite a few amenities to the building. So it's a little bit more higher end, and having those communal amenities for the residents in it. The intent of the zoning bylaw, certainly it's a permitted use in this particular building. And again, we're looking for that mix in the core commercial. And then the official plan really encourages the integration of multiple uses for the downtown area, including residential, commercial, shopping, all of those types of things. And so we also agree that it meets within the intent and purpose of the official plan. So when we took a look at the tests, when we took a look at how the building will be used, looking at the current number of vacant parking spaces throughout the day, that sort of thing, then we believe that this is minor in nature and can accommodate the additional 7 residential units while maintaining the ability for the post office to function on the site as well. So that's kind of my kind of going through the report. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. We also have Mr. Spadola on behalf of the developer who can answer any questions for the committee as well.
Do you want to have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
You say that they don't require as many spots for the post office. So what happens if the post office decides to move?
Right.
And the building gets repurposed into another commercial place, which may require more spots?
It may in the future. I believe there's a long-term lease in place for the post office. That being said, the building, when it was originally built, had basically 3 times as much space as the building is there today, or for the commercial and office use. So when it was originally built, it was only built with that many spots. It's never had that type of issue. And we have the adjacent on-site parking, or both on-site as well as on-street parking. So that the on-street part is never going to go away. And so that's where we feel, because it's part and parcel of that particular area, that it's not going to cause an issue going forward.
Okay, but I looked at seven spots for 7 apartments, some of which are 3-bedroom, which essentially means to me that there'll be more than 1 car.
Potentially.
So where's all this going to be accommodated?
So certainly the post office currently isn't using 11 spots. So they can likely kind of split it between the two and still be okay. If it ever runs into an issue, then we do sell overnight parking spots in the town parking lot and at the clock tower parking.
Behind here, you mean?
Here, as well as at the clock tower parking lot, we sell spots there as well. So if parking becomes an issue in the future, then you have to worry about the overnight parking during the winter months. And that's where we sell those for anyone in that downtown area.
And again, the next question would be, come winter, what do you do with all the snow that gets piled up in there?
Right. And so we're still able to manage that in the clock tower and rent the spaces out.
Okay, so people moving in will have to be aware of that. That's
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the question I had was for the developer, Mr. Suda. So I would assume that this would be, instead of the town flipping the bill for any of the snow, this would be under a condo development, would it not? For the snow removal.
So in terms of the on-site, it's
It's up to the developer?
yeah. So in terms of anything that's in a town parking lot, that sort of thing, we sell a permit and then we cover the cost of removing that. But that's only if there's a need for overflow.
Yeah, I know. The only reason I say that is I would assume that the developer is now the owner of that building and they're renting it out to Canada Post.
Correct. Yep.
So in that case, they're responsible for their own snow removal.
100%.
The bill wouldn't be flipped to the town.
No, not at all.
In the scenario that post office couldn't get in there or anything like that.
Right. No, it's completely a private building, and so it's completely their responsibility.
Yeah, that would be further down the line when they apply for the permit, right? That's the only query I had.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. 370 square meters for the retail office spaces first question, is that just for the post office square meters? Okay, thank you, Matt. Secondly, I just wondered if there's a lease with the post office, I'm assuming, is there a parking requirement for the post office in the lease?
I'll ask Mr. Spadola if he is aware of that.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Angelo Spadola. I am the applicant, the agent, and also the architect. I'm not aware of if the lease contains any agreements between the post office and the owner. Usually, a building like this with that type of use, the Crown corporations would request some parking available to their employees. And I have had, so I do not know for sure, but I have had a discussion with some of the employees with respect to parking and how it's used. And they have confirmed that all the users, all their clients for using the post office for pickup or drop off parcels, it's usually anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. And the gentleman that I was speaking to said, if it stays more than 10 minutes, that means there is a problem, and that has never happened. So I asked about the parking, how many parking spaces they use, and he says there is only 3 employees at any time. Sometimes you can go up to 5. So there are no, the parking requirement for the space that they use is way, so to speak, for the personnel that is employed in that office. I don't see how that the parking availability on site is ever going to be a problem at this point in time. And as I said, I do not know for sure if there is anything in the lease agreement.
Do you have any comments?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm talking to Lori.
Silent mode.
Did you, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no.
There is an echo here in my office. Did you ask me a question?
No, sir, we didn't.
No, so.
No questions.
All right. All the questions asked about the parking already satisfied my questions. I will say that we'd have a serious need for apartments in this town, or housing, whatever. And that building's going to waste, 3/4 empty. One used to have unemployment insurance and everything in that building. Now it's just the post office thing. So I think it's a rather good thing. Is there any more discussion? Do I have a mover and a seconder for the motion?
Mover, shaker.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. New business. Point 1, property standards, the verbal update.
Yes, so we wanted to discuss whether this committee would feel comfortable acting as the property standards committee. So in our property standards bylaw, if somebody is issued an order to comply or fine, those types of things, they have the ability to appeal to the property standards committee. what we realized is we hadn't appointed a property standards committee, and it's a required, how it's set up is it's a minimum of 3 members of the public. And so when we started looking at our various committees, we realized that you're a 5-member group, you're all members of the public, and thought it might be a good fit. Before we presented that to council, we did want to have the discussion here to see if that's something that you're comfortable with doing. And if you are, great. If not, we completely understand, and we'll strike another committee. So we don't generally have a lot of appeals. We do have 2 because we just issued a number of property standard orders. And so if you are willing to act as the property standards committee, we are probably looking for a meeting sometime before the end of May, but it wouldn't be really any longer than these meetings, and fairly sporadic as we go. So only if somebody comes forward with an appeal. So just wanted to kind of put it out there this evening, see if there's a willingness to act as property standards, and then we go from there.
I've acted as a member for the Transportation Appeals Tribunal, and actually I was the chair, so yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Laurie?
Yes, I'd be interested.
Yes, it's unanimous then.
So we want to bring in PR first. It will go to council on May 15th.
If it's approved by council, then we will set up a meeting shortly thereafter. We will send you the property standards bylaw so that you're familiar with it. It's not all that complicated. There's just a bunch of things that we say standards need to be met. And then if anyone wishes to appeal, then they'll come before the committee. Staff will say their part. The person appealing will state theirs, and then you have the ability to make a decision.
Has that standard been updated in the last 20 years?
Yes, it has. It was just updated last year, largely based on City of Brockville's. They had a pretty extensive one, and then we modified it for specific items that we have here in Prescott. So, yeah, it is one that we have tackled in the last couple of years, and fairly straightforward. So,
Why I say that was because 20 years ago, well, a little over 20 years ago, we did it and didn't know if it had been updated since.
yes, it.
So now we have to study.
So we saw there was a couple failings in it, so we took and tackled it, and yeah, it's not a bad property standards bylaw, and it certainly something, once you get a couple of appeals under your belt, if you see where there's areas for improvement, we'd be happy to have that discussion as well. Okay, excellent.
Okay, item number 8 is adjournment. Do I have a recommendation? Well, I have a recommendation. The Committee of Adjustment meeting be adjourned. The time is 5:28. Do I have a mover and a seconder? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Excellent.